Alright, everybody. Hello, it is I, Anything Works here, and welcome back to another Hell's Kitchen top 10 list. This time, it'll be the top 10 worst black jackets. A big shout out to the Hell's Kitchen Discord server, which helped me compile this list together. However, there will be one caveat, being that this will not be including seasons 1 through 4 because there was no quality control instated in those seasons, and a lot of the obvious picks would come from there. Those picks being Jimmy from season 1, Jessica from season 1, Sarah from season 2, Garrett and Virginia also from season 2, also as well from season 2. Josh from season 3, last but not least, Matt from season 4. Um, and I just kind of wanted to diversify the list a bit because you always see those names tossed around with, oh, these are the worst black jackets, da 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 da. And I don't know, I don't really feel like it's fair to talk about them, especially for people like Jimmy and Jessica who weren't even chefs before they went on the show. They're just kind of thrown into the weeds, I suppose. Other than that, even the other contestants who were chefs, maybe they weren't, whatever. Um, again, season 1 through 4 didn't really have any quality control, and you always see these names thrown around anyway. So, with that being said, let's consider those like dishonorable mentions, I suppose. But let's go ahead and if I can, if these dogs will stop barking, but I mean, it's not coming up with my audio anyway. So let's go ahead, start off the list with Keisha Zalakoffer from season 12. Now, these first couple of picks, I'd say these first two picks actually aren't really that bad. They just lack a lot of what other black jackets, I don't know, they just lack something. Keisha really lacks anything. Like, she doesn't really have a strong suit. She carried herself well in the kitchen. She had some good nights, but she also had a lot of bad nights. Her challenges weren't the greatest. She didn't show that much leadership during service. She's just not really that special, and like most of the other black jackets are better than her, but that doesn't mean she's bad by any stretch of the imagination. If I had to put her on a tier list, she'd be like C minus tier. So you know, she's not that bad. Next up, Susan Heaton from season 11. Same deal. I just feel like she's worse than Keisha because at least Keisha had some strong services. Susan didn't really have any. And she was nominated a good amount of times by her own team, all of which for very legitimate reasons. It didn't help that her attitude also caused problems in the kitchen, as opposed to some other chefs who had bad attitudes but didn't follow them in the kitchen. We'll get to a couple of those later on, like bad attitudes that affected the kitchen. Um, and her challenges were notoriously pretty bad, especially considering she couldn't, cook lamb to save her own face. Um, and just overall, not much. So she has some leadership moments, but she just doesn't have nearly the amount of good services that Keisha had, and that was very few to begin with. Next up is Brian Santos from season 13, and it pains me to put him on the list because I really like Santos. He's a chill dude, and despite going along with the douchebags of that season being Aaron and Steve. He managed to just stop being a douchebag. He was a nice guy. Unfortunately, he didn't really have anything in his favor. He really didn't do much of anything the entire season, other than a couple of good challenges, and that's why he's lower or higher, I guess, or whatever than Susan or Keisha, because he didn't really have any good moments other than some challenges, which I will say I do believe he was robbed out of that challenge that Roe won, but that's my personal preference. Speaking of Roe, next up, Roe DeLeo for season 13. You could switch these two around, kind of like Susan and Keisha. I couldn't really care less. I'm just putting her here because Roe was nominated 6 times, all for legitimate reasons. It's rare to see so many nominations and all of them be legitimate. Roe was one of them. She had a good start. She had a good start, like maybe the first 4 or so episodes, and then she just kind of tumbled like the rest of the season. Her challenges aren't great. She had a lot of fucking mistakes, like just unbelievable. Um, didn't really have that much leadership after those first couple of episodes. She had episodes like she had some good moments here and there, but like she has so many mistakes, and I think it really does go to show that uh that she was nominated 6 times, all for very legitimate reasons. Coming in at number 5, Joshua Chivato from season 14. Now, I'm a Josh fan. I like him a lot. I thought his friendship with Megan was pretty heartwarming. Thought it was cute. But Josh unfortunately sucks. He really wasn't that good throughout the season. He had like some moments of brightness in the service, but not that many. He had really good challenges, but unfortunately, the ones that he didn't do well on, he absolutely fucking tanked. This includes like the Alaskan Fish Challenge and the what was it? The Exotic Meat Challenge. I can look this up. Hold on. Actually, no, I can't look this up because the wiki took away the challenge stuff. Um, so I had to go through this description to read it and everything. But I digress. Other than that, it's just like after Brett left, basically he started just like a downward spiral, just crashing and tumbling down. He had 5 consecutive nominations, one of which was by Ramsey. All 5 of them are completely legitimate, and overall, it's just like the amount of mistakes he made in the kitchen is really what elevates him here. Because on the red team, his first service there during charity night, he had the worst charity night in the history of Hell's Kitchen. Maybe not as bad as Ray's, but he's definitely in the top 2 or top 3 worst charity nights ever. He completely fucked the team by drying out the tuna and had to use the blue team supply, which is absolutely heinous. And it doesn't help that the rest of his services absolutely tanked and he sucked big fat load. And even during his final service, which was like quote unquote his quote unquote strongest service, not during his nomination period, the 5 nominations in a row. Um, he still did pretty poorly, served raw chicken, and in general, he was just very frazzled in the kitchen, showed almost zero leadership, any successful leadership, rather. While he did okay during the finale, I think it speaks volumes that, again, he was nominated 5 times in a row, all for very legitimate reasons, and his frazzledness led to a very confused kitchen, starting with when Fred left. Number 4, I'm sorry, number 5, Elise Wims. I think that's her last name now, or is it Harris? I think it's Wims. Yeah, her last name's Wims. Um, Elise Wims from season 9. Um, you know, when I was mentioning that bad attitude that carries over into the kitchen, Elise was one of them. She had an extremely big ego, and even though she's a pretty good chef, let me preface this. Every single one of these people were probably good chefs, or are probably good chefs. I say were for one contestant, are probably great chefs in real life, and they're very successful. However, what the show showed us. That's the only way I can critique my arguments. Not, oh, well, so and so were good outside the kitchen, so maybe they're portrayed in a bad light. I understand that people get portrayed in a bad light. I know a couple of contestants personally that were portrayed in an extremely horrible light. Case in point, Amber from season 19. But that doesn't excuse the fact that all of these mistakes that they were shown, like you just can't really like make these up. Elise has one of the worst consistencies I've ever seen for a black jacket. Probably the worst. One of the, maybe it's even up there with Virginia. I don't know. She had very little standout moments in service, and despite the fact that she had some pretty good challenges and she could be a leader when, she sometimes succeeded. Her challenges that she performed poorly in were just god awful, just absolutely bottom of the barrel, terrible, absolutely horrible challenges. And even though she could show off some leadership, most of it's just let's go, ladies. It's in the same vein of Michelle, where it's just come on, guys, pick it up. Like you're not really saying much other than like, okay, let's hype the team up instead of giving directions. And it doesn't help that she doesn't really have any good services, and her bad attitude carried over into the kitchen. But I think it speaks volumes that she's only number 5 on this list. Number 4 breaks my heart because Trev is one of my favorite contestants, period, in Hell's Kitchen. I love him. He's funny. He's a wisecracker. And overall, he just seems like a swell guy. Unfortunately, season 8 Trev, not that good. His first service saw him have 5 salads ejected. Amazing. He was then invisible for the rest of the season until, for some reason, Ramsey switched him over to the red team, where he proceeded to have 2 really good services in a row, and then he absolutely crashed on Garner Station. Then he switched back to the blue team, had another really good service, and then after that, he completely crashed and tumbled in consistency. He has 3 inarguably good to great services. Let me get that straight. There's a reason why he's not in the top 3, but he is at number 4 for a reason. First reason why his challenges fucking sucked this season. He had a couple of good ones, don't get me wrong, but a broken clock is right twice a day, or however the saying goes. And if I'm not mistaken, Trev only had 2 to 3 pretty decent challenges. I remember the ravioli one was pretty good, or was it the cheese? I think it was ravioli. Ravioli one was pretty good. He had like the food truck one was also good, but I can't really name anything else off the top of my head. And when I say his consistency plummeted, I fucking mean it. He didn't have a single, may I repeat, a single good service in the Black Jackets. Was nominated every service for legitimate reasons, as well as just overall tanking. Especially that one service where Ramsey left, Trev had the absolute worst night on Meat Station I've ever seen in possibly the entirety of Hell's Kitchen. Maybe Corey's from season 19 takes the cake, but Trev had a really bad one. And it doesn't help that he had an absolute meltdown on the fish station during the semifinals and had a lackluster pass performance where nobody listened to him and he didn't do much to grab the attention of his team. I can understand being sabotaged by your team because they don't like you, but even though Trev had a rough start because his team didn't like him, he just continued doing nothing for the rest of the pass, and he kept talking back to Jillian even though he had garbage fish, etc., etc. I love Trev to death, and even though he has really good leadership moments in this season, and despite the fact that he could have a few flashes of brilliance, it doesn't excuse all the rest of the awful that he did during this season. And I should note, Trev and Elise got significantly better in their returning seasons. While Trev had a bit of a downward spiral in season 18, it should be noted that he had pretty good challenges up until his final 2 or 3. He just so happened to be extremely unlucky with how the point scoring was. And Elise just showed extreme improvement from season 9 to season 17, being pretty damn consistent, having fantastic challenges outside of a couple of exceptions, and overall it just improved by a large margin outside of the Cook for Your Life challenge or the Black Jacket challenge, or whatever you want to call it. So these two chefs, I do believe, were just like they were getting their beginnings. They were thrown into Hell's Kitchen at probably the wrong time during the first times, but they got significantly better in their second seasons. Number 3, unfortunately, is Paulie Gigante Jr. from season 16, not 15, sorry. Hate to put him here because, rest in peace. Paulie's been dead for about 3 years, I think. I think it was a drug overdose. Heather Williams from the same season said it was suicide. But besides that, it really sucks to put him here because I actually enjoyed Paulie quite a bit. Was he an asshole? Yeah. But was he incredibly funny as well? Yeah, he was. Even if it was intentionally or unintentionally, he brought to us some of the best moments of that season. But barred that and his fantastic challenge record, let me just say that his awful challenges, when I said Elise's were bottom of the barrel, I meant it. But Paulie's bottom barrel fucking challenges, especially that one ribeye that we saw, and one other challenge, I forgot what it was, but they were absolutely horrible. Now, 2 extremely awful challenges doesn't get you to the top 3 worst Black Jackets of all time. Sure, they help, but even if all of his challenges were amazing, which most of them were, he would still be here. This is because he had virtually no standouts during service, and I mean it. He had a couple of good services, but other than that, it was just awful consistency from back to back to back to back services, showing absolutely no leadership whatsoever. Need I point you to the service where here's sous chef, the final 5, and he gave one of the worst leadership performances I've ever seen, being incredibly frazzled, confusing himself, the team, Ramsey, and the sous chefs. Absolutely fucking embarrassing. And again, it just doesn't help that his bad attitude carried with him into the kitchen, and his consistency is god awful. With very little leadership moments, I think Paulie unfortunately deserves the title of the third worst Black Jacket. Number 2 is Robin Almodovar from season 10. Now, I'm only allowing one chef one chef for this list, so Robin can't appear here twice, but she probably would have. But I decided against it because A, I'm biased and I really do like Robin, and B, because she did show marginal improvement in season 17. I don't think that's fair to her. So I decided to put her in arguably worst season. She had a horrible challenge record, despite a couple of good ones, including her signature dish. Most of her challenges were absolutely abhorrent. Just some of the worst challenges I've ever seen. And outside of like the first 2 or 3 episodes, her consistency was fucking tanking. It doesn't help, it obviously didn't help that one service Kimmy was practically sabotaging at times. But that doesn't excuse the amount of raw food that Robin sent up, the amount of miscommunication she had, as well as the fact that her horrible attitude carried into the kitchen. This was remedied in season 17, where she was just flustered all the goddamn time, even if she wasn't good. But also in that season, she had really good challenges after she was switched to the blue team. But it's just a fact that she didn't really show any leadership during service. Her consistency was god awful. Her challenges were consistently bad outside of a couple of few, outside of a couple, and her bad attitude carried inside with her to the kitchen. It's just she's just Polly, but but she doesn't have the good challenges. That's basically why. Um, maybe you could argue Elise should have been here, but so she had good services sometimes. Robin doesn't really have a standout service that you could defend her on. Neither does Polly, and I think overall that's what the top three encapsulates. Just no standout services, hardly any leadership whatsoever. When they try to show it, it was really bad. Challenges are probably the least common denominator when it comes to like judging chefs. But it just goes to show that like how awful Polly was. He still managed to get into the top three, yet Robin is still above or below him, whatever. And I mean absolutely no disrespect to any of these chefs. I absolutely love Robin. She's one of my favorite contestants of all time. As is Trev, as is Josh, and especially number one, everybody loves him. Most people love him anyway. But that being said, folks, the worst black jacket of all time, not counting seasons 1 through 4, without a doubt in my mind, is Tommy Stevens from season 9. Um, what is this? What is there to say? He had one good service. Every other service, he was either invisible or he did absolutely terribly. He sent up so much raw food. The amount of times he was silent on communication was pure insanity. I have never seen a chef fall silent as many times as I have seen Tommy's. And while Tommy has a good signature dish, he shined in the beer challenge, maybe a couple of other points. His challenges were unremarkable at best, and absolutely terrible at worst. Now, of course, like I said, bad challenges doesn't get you to the top spot of the worst black jacket ever. And let me tell you, Tommy has one of the worst consistencies I've ever seen. It might be marginally better than Elisa's. Hell, it might be even better, just a lot better than Elisa's. But the fact of the matter is, he had only one good service, and that was after his second nomination or whatever. And his second nomination had to be one of the worst services I've ever seen for a single just single service for a black jacket. His pass was really bad, extremely uneven, with sometimes he would be leading and the other times he would just fall silent, and he didn't catch a sabotage, man. It's heartbreaking because Tommy's funny. He's a good guy. He's probably really fun to hang out with. And maybe if he returned in an all-star season, he'd perform a lot better. But unfortunately, Tommy has no good qualities about him when it comes to cooking, other than that one service and 2, 3, maybe 4 maximum of his challenges. And that's why, in my opinion, Tommy is the worst black jacket in Hell's Kitchen history, barring seasons 1 through 4, of course. Now, of course, I'm not the end all be all of opinions. I know this list may be a little contemptuous, I suppose, but I feel like I presented my points well, and barring me going through just a stat overview of every chef and everything that they did, I feel like I presented my points the best that I probably could have as to why I think these were the worst black jackets in the history of Hell's Kitchen. But folks, like I said, I'm not the end all be all of opinions. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can include seasons 1 through 4 if you want or not. I just decided not to for the sake of variety and also because those seasons didn't have quality control. Thank you guys so much for watching. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate your support, and it helps out the channel, boosts the algorithm. You've heard this a million times, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I mean, anything works. Have yourself a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye, everybody.